Grandma turned 70 on a Saturday, which felt exactly right. Some ages deserve weekends. The community hall smelled like smoke and sugar. Laughter clattered across folding chairs. My daughter volunteered to help in the kitchen because she loves the choreography of it, the way heat and timing make a kind of music. She's a natural, my aunt bragged, watching her dice onions with a concentration that made me proud and a little sad. 15 shouldn't have to prove itself so much. I've seen her rehearse knife skills with a butter spreader on our couch cushions, whispering the steps like a spell. Curl your fingers, mind the edge, breathe. She's the kind of kid who reads recipes like stories and measures salt with the seriousness of a math test. If there is a stage in our family, the kitchen is its theater, and she wanted to earn her place in the lights. Grandma floated from table to table like a queen who still remembered every servant's name and favorite dessert. She wore a brooch shaped like a teacup and asked every guest if they were warm enough, fed enough, happy enough. 70 is just 7 with a 0, she told my daughter earlier that week. You get to be curious again. Maybe that's why my girl volunteered. Maybe she wanted to be part of making a day that made Grandma feel 7 again. Steam fogged the kitchen windows. Someone cranked the speaker up too loud. Old soul blurred into modern pop and back again. A cousin joked about earning your plate, which should have been a joke and nothing more. Someone else taped a handwritten schedule to the freezer door. Times, temperatures, tasks, initials. There were a lot of initials next to my daughter's name. The adults didn't mean harm, I told myself. They meant efficiency, tradition, togetherness. Then time did that cruel accordion thing. My daughter lifted a pot she shouldn't have been lifting alone. A shoulder bumped her, maybe by accident, maybe because the walkway was too crowded with bodies that believed their urgency had the right of way. The boil rolled forward in a silver sheet. She gasped. The sound cut a clean line through the music. Liquid hissed when it kissed her skin, and my heart forgot its choreography completely. It's amazing how the body remembers what to do except for the most important part, how not to break. I moved before language. She stood frozen, clutching her forearm as if pressure could rewind temperature. The skin bloomed angry and bright, already blistering along the edge like a horizon you do not want to see. She looked at me with a child's question and a grown person's fear. Behind her, the timer on the oven refused to care. It kept counting down as if pain were an optional ingredient. "I've got you," I said, and that was the only sentence that mattered in that moment. My hands knew the drill: cool water, remove rings, don't peel, breathe. I kept my voice like a metronome because panic is a terrible conductor. We were already at the sink when my aunt's voice snapped across the tile. "It's fine, cool water and back to the line." We're in the weeds. You could hear the capital letters in her tone. She wasn't a bad person. She was a person who, for too long, had been taught that food wins. Back to the line. I turned, and what I saw was a row of relatives protecting a schedule instead of a child. A timer beeped. Someone swore about dry chicken. Someone else shouted, "We need hands," like hands weren't attached to hearts. The room mistook urgency for importance. A clipboard hovered near my daughter's shoulder like it had more authority than pain. "No," I said, "ER now." A hand waved me off. "Don't make a scene," another relative said. It's Grandma's night. There it was, the family prayer, the one that turns harm into etiquette. "My daughter's skin is the scene," I said. Grandma raised us to value people over plates. I thought of Grandma teaching us to taste soup and pass spoons around like we were sharing secrets, the way she'd swat our hands away from hot pans with a laugh that meant not yet. You'd think the line, "people over plates," would have knocked a little sense into the room. It didn't. A cousin shoved a tray into my daughter's hands. "We just need you to." The rest of the sentence was heat and denial. I took the tray. I set it down. I took my child's uninjured hand. We left. The door out of the kitchen felt heavier than a door should. It fought us like a habit. In the car, she made those small, heroic sounds kids make when they're trying not to scare you. "It hurts," she whispered, and I kept my voice calm because hers deserved a ground that didn't shake. I told her about the ER nurses who tie their hair up like ballerinas and make bad jokes on purpose. I told her she was brave. I meant it. Courage sometimes looks like not arguing with people who don't deserve your pain. The ER nurse was kindness in scrubs. She said second degree with professionalism that left no room for debate. Words like partial thickness and blistering and cool compress folded into the room, clinical and clean. They cleaned and dressed the burn, documented the edges, asked the right questions about how and where. I answered while my daughter squeezed my fingers and stared at the clock like she could pull time forward and be done with this. The doctor had steady hands and a face that softened when he saw hers. "You did the right thing leaving," he said. Relief is a heavy word when it lands. I took photos when they said it would help. I asked for copies of everything with our names spelled correctly, because bureaucracy respects letters even when people forget to. When the discharge papers came, I read them twice to make sure the instructions would follow us home. Pain meds, dressing changes, watch for signs of infection. Buy gauze that doesn't stick, don't be a hero. I added that last one myself. Only then did I let the anger breathe. It took up space in my chest like a second pair of lungs. It didn't roar, it made lists. On the way back, my phone filled with messages. Where did you go? We need help plating. It's not that bad. A photo of a golden brown tray that they wanted me to admire arrived like sarcasm. The last message came from the relative who had shoved the tray into my daughter's hands. I answered with a picture of the bandage and the nurse's note. We won't be back tonight, I wrote, and we won't be back to your kitchen. I turned off read receipts. Some conversations don't deserve to know if they reached you. Back at the hall, the party continued. The DJ found a new groove. A toddler slept under a table in a nest of coats. I walked in, not because I wanted to be there, but because I needed them to see what consequence looks like when it's not wearing an apron. I wanted the music to keep playing, I just wanted them to hear another rhythm underneath it, responsibility. Conversation dropped an octave as I crossed the room. I found the event organizer, the uncle who likes to say our family's side catering business is what keeps us close. He grins when he says business as if the word itself marinates meat. You had a minor in a crowded, unsafe hot zone without proper supervision, I said. She was burned. We left for the hospital. Here are the ER documents. Here are the photos, and here is what happens next. I said it calmly, the way a good recipe card says simmer instead of boil. Calm travels further than shouting. People follow it because they want to know what it knows. I filed an incident report with the community hall manager before the DJ could start the next song. I included the phrase lack of safety protocols and minor required to continue working after injury. I asked for their insurance information. I emailed our documentation to the address on the rental contract. The manager's eyebrows formed a sympathy tent. She photocopied the report like it was already a file. Maybe it was. Then I called the non-emergency line and asked how to correctly report a preventable injury at a private event that functioned like a commercial kitchen. The operator gave me 2 departments. I submitted both forms. I attached everything. I did not wait for permission. I wrote exactly what happened without adjectives. Adjectives feel good, facts change things. My mother tried to take my arm. Don't embarrass the family, she said. Her mouth made a tight line I knew from a lifetime of dinners we didn't leave even when they turned into arguments. The family embarrassed itself, I said. I'm protecting a child. I thought of the women in our family who burned their fingers and tongues and never named the pain because dinner had to be perfect. I decided the cycle ended with me. The hall manager met me by the stage. She looked at the bandage and at my daughter's face, brave, pale, tired. We take safety seriously, she said. We have rules about minors in the kitchen for a reason. She sounded like someone remembering a rule after it mattered. Enforce them, I said, because tonight you didn't. The word didn't hung there, an unpaid bill. Grandma found us then. Her lipstick had faded and her shoes were in her hand like she was done pretending they were comfortable. She kissed my daughter's head, very close to the bandage but not touching it. You are more important than soup, she said, then to me. Thank you for leaving. It didn't fix the night, but it fixed the part of me that worried I was ruining it. The ripples found shore over the next 2 weeks. The community hall suspended our family's kitchen privileges until we completed safety training and submitted a written plan that included clear supervision rules and a ban on minors near hot equipment. The side catering business lost its next booking at the same hall. The organizer had to explain to Grandma why her favorite place wouldn't host our family for a while. Insurance reached out. Reimbursement wasn't a debate. Someone mailed a check that felt like the exact weight of their relief. Some relatives were furious at me for telling the truth out loud. They used words like overreaction and private matter. I used words like burn depth and duty of care. We were no longer speaking the same language, and I refused to learn theirs. One cousin tried to stage a peace talk at a coffee shop. I brought a printout titled Safety EXPCTATONS and a pen. They brought a story about how I had humiliated them. We did not agree. The coffee was good. My daughter started therapy to unpack the sound of the spill and the freezing moment that followed. She said the therapist's office smelled like cinnamon and felt like a library where all the books were about her. The relative who had tried to hand her the tray wrote a letter that sounded like a legal brief forced into a sympathy card. The aunt who'd yelled back to the line sent a text that said, "I'm sorry if you felt," and I stopped reading there because apologies with if are just excuses with makeup. Grandma wrote a note in her beautiful looping script. When I was 15, I burned the rice and your great-grandmother told me the only thing that mattered was that I learned. I'm glad you learned to leave. We taped that one to the fridge. At the follow-up appointment, the doctor said her healing was excellent. The skin would remember, but so would she, the part where the adult in the room chose her over a schedule. After the checkup, we drove to the good ice cream place and she picked a flavor that tasted like neon in childhood. Will I have a scar? She asked. Probably, I said. Most brave stories do. We talked about how scars are maps that tell where you've been and how you got home. When the hall finally reinstated our family, with conditions, I added my own. If I attend, my daughter doesn't work. She is a guest. If I see unsafe conditions, I leave and I report. If anyone challenges those sentences, they aren't near my child. I typed them up and sent them to the group chat with the subject line, non-NEGOTIBLES. Some hearts reacted, some people left me on read. Boundaries don't need applause. I also printed the list and stuck it to our fridge at home with a magnet shaped like a tomato. My daughter added a doodle of an oven mitt giving a thumbs up. The training the hall required was boring in the exact way that saves lives. Thermometers, cross-contamination, PPE. Someone rolled their eyes when the instructor said no minors on the hot line. I didn't. I made eye contact. The instructor did too. A week later, a laminated checklist appeared by the kitchen door at the hall. Temperature logs, first aid locations, who supervises whom. People groaned. People complied. The world didn't end. Consequences multiplied quietly. The business switched to cold platters for a while because hot food without minors takes more adults than they had patience for. The organizer learned that contracts ask hard questions when insurance claims enter the chat. The cousin who joked about earning your plate started joking about earning your food safety certificate, which is an upgrade I can live with. My aunt began to say "we're in the weeds" into her shoulder instead of across the room, as if softer words might grow different outcomes. At home, we changed our choreography. We cooked together with sleeves rolled up and oven mitts that look like animals. She asks before lifting, and I nod when it's safe, because permission is its own kind of protection. On nights when the house is quiet, she sits on the counter and reads recipes aloud like poems. "Simmer," she says, and looks at me with a grin. We high-five when we remember to turn pan handles inward. We tell Grandma about our kitchen rules on Sundays, and she claps like we invented them. A month after the burn, the hall hosted a safety meeting for all frequent renters. I went. My daughter wanted to come. We agreed she could if she sat in the back with Grandma and kept her sleeve down to protect the healing skin. The manager read our incident report aloud with names removed, heads tilted. You could feel the room learning something the hard way in a way that might make it easier next time. Afterward, a stranger with flour on her apron came up to thank us. "I run a bake sale for the school," she said. "We had kids near the kettle last year, not anymore. That thank you was not necessary, but it helped. Some relatives drifted away. They invite us to fewer things that involve stoves and more things that involve parks. I don't miss the stoves. I bring extra water and bandages to the parks anyway, because preparedness is a habit now. My mother and I will probably never agree about that night. But last week, when a candle dripped on her hand, she didn't wave me off. She put her hand under cool water and smiled like the tiniest stitch had mended. And my daughter, she still loves the choreography. The other day, she taught Grandma to make a new sauce from a video she found online. She kept saying, "Careful it splatters," like a mantra and a gift. At the end, she tasted the spoon and did a little dance that looked like applause. "Perfect," she said, and I thought not the sauce, the safety. People like to say that family means having each other's backs. That night, my family turned its back on a child to keep the food moving. I turned the child toward a sink, a nurse, a night where she mattered more than any plate. Then I turned the story outward, to the forms and calls and rules that make sure other kids don't get told to get back to the line. If you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping someone safe, tell me what you did and what changed because of it. If this gave you a script to use